Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Long time no see.
Yes, yeah. It's feel like it's been hours.
Uh,
Yeah, the going to bed too late and getting up too early for a few days in a row is catching up with me. That's fine. So once I start talking, my extrovert mode takes over, and then I'm all good. So
I'm the same way. Like I can be so tired, but as soon as I hop into a conversation with someone or training or doing anything like that, it like gets me pumped up and
hammer, you
energized.
say? Yeah. So you said this is focused on the story
Of overcoming.
of overcoming. Okay.
Yes. So the unedited version goes on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So after we get through all the explanation and everything from
Presumably
that
not
point,
this part of it.
no. It'll go on YouTube, and that's my unedited version. I don't edit out anything. It's completely raw, uncut. But then all the edited stuff goes on to the podcast.
Okay.
But even still, I try not to edit too much. I don't edit out the likes and the ums and all the things because it's so much of people's personalities and how they talk. And I don't want people to have a false sense of understanding of how someone communicates if they're someone that they align with and want to work with.
I worked really hard to eliminate my ums organically, so it's good they're not being edited out.
Yeah. And so the whole focus is I'll actually have you introduce yourself at some point and who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Okay.
And then we'll dive into your story of what your story has been, whatever that story is for you, of what you've had to overcome to get to where you are. Because I think a lot of times people think success is a dollar amount. They think it's a certain amount of years in a business, when sometimes it's maybe you've been doing your business for 8 years for free. It's been a hobby, and now you're finally taking that step to monetize it. That's a success to me.
Yep. Or
Success
actually, I'd even
6
say
or 7 figures. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like where I am now is a non-traditional success point. Like not my business, not making enough money to pay the bills and using Uber on weekends to cover the difference. But the fact that I can live my truth and work for myself and not have a job and a boss and still pay the bills. We still have this house. Everyone eats. Sometimes the kid doesn't eat what we give her, but everyone eats. It's like we have all this stuff and I see other people with problems. I'm like, oh, I don't have those problems. I guess I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, we also got ourselves compared to our goals, and our goals are never where we are. So they're like, well, this is a goal. Guess I'm done.
Right. And so that's why I like people sharing their story of not so much just you started a business and this is your business, but we all have life challenges and things that we go through that has gotten us to running this business. And so I like people to start back as far as they want to and share whatever part of their story they choose to. That is probably like for most people, they're like, oh, I have my story. This is what I do, talks on, all that kind of stuff. And other people, all their talks are business focused. And they're like, well, I don't know what my story is. And so I don't really have a specific, like, this is exactly what I want to know. It's where do you feel your journey started to getting you to becoming an entrepreneur, and what were some of the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them to get to where you are? My journey started from when I was little. Not everybody's journey starts there. So.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess it really started when I left college, and in my stubborn 22-year-old ADD way was like, getting a job is too hard. I'm not going to bother. I'll just start a business. Which I then managed to run straight into the ground, but very slowly.
See, and I'm so excited to hear this. I'm so excited to hear this because, and see, this is the stuff that you'll see on YouTube. This is why I like these stories, because so many people see the highlight reels They see that after people have hit 6 or 7 figures, they see after someone's built a team and they're, working 4-hour work weeks and but their business looks like they're running and working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
They don't realize a lot of times that they are perfectly capable of achieving those things as well. But until they find someone they can align with who had a story similar to them or is currently going through it or is a couple steps ahead, a lot of times those stories we're so far disconnected from them. They're great. They might be inspiring, but that's not what's going to keep our motivation going moving forward. It's knowing that there's people that this is everything. These are things that they went through. They ran their business into the ground. They were making money. They had their best year ever. And then they made a pivot and now they're back to zero. Right. And starting again. And I think those stories are so important. So people have that alignment and can find hopefully their next step, their next mentor, their next coach, their next person that is going to be able to help them on their journey, not just because of what they do, but because of who they are, because of their story. Because like you said, 22, ADD, coming out of college, do you know how many people can actually resonate with that? But if you don't ever tell that story, people don't know that you're the person for them.
Yeah.
So, so I'm excited to dive into your story and have you share. So we have about an hour. We don't have to use up all that time. You can talk as long as you want. I will probably ask questions and I take notes while I listen because I'm going to forget a thought so I can circle back. But I like it to just be a really natural conversation because for me, these are the things that people don't get to see. These are the conversations you have in your masterminds, in your inner circle. These are the conversations that when we're talking about our story and how we can allow that to grow into our business or help us somehow, like these are the things people don't get to hear. And so I really like it to be a very natural conversation and just go with it. So I don't prepare questions usually unless someone asks me to specifically ask them something.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Let's tell a story.
We will jump in. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I'm Dina Adams, your host, and I have an amazing guest for you guys today, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy. And Michael and I crossed paths. It feels like forever ago, but I know it's only been a few months. I want to say October, maybe even closer to like the end of October. And Michael is someone who, from my perspective, has one of the biggest hearts for people I've ever met. He truly is authentic and real. And when you hear things come out of his mouth, you know you can trust it. That's something that is rare to find in the grand scheme of things, I think. And Michael's very safe with his inner circle. He's very protective of that. He's very forward and blunt and open and honest. And I absolutely love that about him because you always know where you stand. It's really amazing. So, Michael, I just want to thank you for being here and being willing to share your story today.
Well, I am happy to do it. And as you say, I'm very open with all kinds of things. I mean, my entire plan for the quarter's behind me on all my Zoom calls because under my green screen. I'm like, I'm just going to share it because, there's nothing secret on it. So there it is. So yeah, let's share some stories.
That's awesome. So first, why don't you tell us, obviously, who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
All right. So I'm Michael Whitehouse. I'm the guy who knows a guy, and I connect people. I build communities and relationships. I serve abundance-minded entrepreneurs. I try to surround myself only with the kind of people I don't have to worry about if what they're saying matches what they're doing, because if it doesn't match, I just go somewhere else. And I've found that's a very good place to be and good way to live. So it's entrepreneurs from the aspiring level up to the 6-figure level. all different levels and making connections. As a networker, as a connector, I serve more successful entrepreneurs who are looking to make connections to people they either don't know how to find or don't have the time to find, because I network compulsively. But I've learned a little bit about a lot, and I like to share that with the people who can really benefit from it, because I'll pick up these little tricks here and there. Some of them are tricks I've learned to function with ADD, like sitting down and mapping out an entire quarter on a whiteboard, which this is the first time I've done it. I'm super excited because every morning I wake up with a plan. It's amazing. And so all of a sudden people are like, how'd you do that? It's like, oh, I'll run a class. It's next week. So, it's teaching people those things because they may have all these other tools. And I'm like, well, I've got a planning strategy, or I've got an email strategy, or I've got these, this might be the piece that plugs in. So I kind of help fill the gaps with those bits of knowledge I have. But the bigger picture is building communities and connections, introductions in various ways. And then figuring out how helping other people can turn into a business and keep this very nice house paid for.
There you go. That's awesome. And one of the things that I want to mention is, yes, that plan that you have behind you. I know he mentioned next week. So if you're listening to this podcast, it's not going to be next week. It's already happened. But Michael's one of those action takers. So he goes from idea to action in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Like I've never seen anybody like I wish I could do. He says, oh, you want that? Okay, I wasn't planning on it, but hey, let's do it next week. And now it's out there and it's in your email and it's on social media and it's everywhere. And you don't miss a beat. And I know you may sometimes feel like you do, but from this side of things, being in your circle and in your world, mm-hmm. We can be in a meeting and within days, just an idea that was mentioned is now in my email. It's all put together. It's all happening. But I want people to understand something about that. There's a lot of work that goes into bringing it to fruition mm-hmm. sometimes. But when you don't overthink it, it's like, oh, I'm just going to send out an email and now it's happening. And yep. All I need is email and a Zoom.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the key things that's so important about what I'm doing this quarter, making this plan. I'm not going to go into detail about how I make it. But the end result of the process was, I'll tell you the clues that I used to build it. And if you're smart, you can figure it out. And if not, you can reach out to me and maybe I'll teach another workshop. But it's that if I know what I need to do, I probably know how to do it. And thus I can sit down and take the time to say, what are all the action steps under that thing? And then it's a matter of putting all those action steps into a calendar. So putting them all in a spreadsheet, assigning dates to them all. So every day I wake up, I know what I'm doing. But when I suddenly say, oh, I should do this workshop next week because, January is burning and I can't just, I'll do it in 6 weeks, normal planning horizon. Nobody wants to do like a plan your quarter workshop in the third week of February. That's a weird time. I mean, I'll probably do it again in the end of March or early April, because then it's plan your quarter.
There you go.
But I wanted to get it quick because people were excited about it. So I was able to say, okay, I'm going to do this. It takes these action steps, which means I need to move other things to not get done on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so I was able to do that. And so prior to this, the ball would get dropped. Like, oh, I got to do this. So I start doing this thing. And then I drop the ball on some other things. And then I'm like, hey, what was it I was supposed to do? And at the end of the day, I'm not sure if I've done everything I need to do. And now that I have those like blocks that I can move from one day to the next, there's a concept I heard once is structure creates freedom. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want structure. I want to be free. I want to do whatever I want. But no, there's like, I'm a multimillionaire because I won the lottery kind of freedom. And then, you don't need structure because you're just doing whatever. But for me, structure creates freedom because I can say, okay, I'm going to launch a workshop next week because I have the structure to make 3 moves and it's done. Whereas without structure, it's, I don't know if I can do it next week because I don't know what else I have to do today. And I don't know if I have time tomorrow and what I'm going to need to do. And then the rest of it is infrastructure, which also creates freedom. So the fact that I can, in 30 minutes, be like, I'm doing a workshop, let's do it. Well, I go on Thrivecart. and I set up the landing page, and Thrivecart does half the work for me. Zoom does a bunch of the work for me. I just have to show up to Zoom. My email system is set up so I can just send out an email and put it into the structure, or I can do so. Basically, I have the structure. I'm not reinventing the process. If you've never done a workshop and you're doing your first workshop, there's a bunch of things you do to get it ready. When it's your 30th workshop, even if the previous 29 no one showed up to, you know the process. So you can just iterate and go. And a lot of this, getting back to your topic of the show, stories, goes back to what I have come to call tactical laziness. And I used to think of it as my ADD disability, that I wasn't good at focus, I wasn't good at follow through, and I wasn't, I look at these other events and they've got the funnels and the copy and the graphics, and they spend 9 months planning it, and there's such a huge thing. And I can't do that. And I used to think, I can never be too successful because I can't do that. And then I started running summits the way I run them. Like, how do I run a summit? Well, I'll invite some people, I'll write some copy, it'll be pretty good copy. I'll make it kind of wacky and unique, so the copy doesn't have to be as good, because we're competing in a unique space. Like, I run a summit called Entrepreneured. It's serious entrepreneurship, it's marketing, it's mindsets, all that, but it's with a geeky flavor. So we're wearing costumes and we're making Star Wars jokes. And one of the talks, the name of one of the talks of the upcoming Entrepreneured is the Sith Wookiee mistakes that business owners make, which is just, the talk is the 6 rookie mistakes. She changed it to be a dad pun, and I'm like, accepted. There's a terrible pun in there, you're in. I don't even know if the talk's good. I just love the title. You're in. So it makes it easier to get people, because the right people are like, oh my God, I don't see any other summits like that. Super fun. And it's 1 day long, so you don't have to deal with 3 days. There's no dashboard. There's like all that infrastructure. There's no funnel. There's no VIP ticket. The videos are available in the Entrepreneur Mentor community, which already exists. So I stripped down all the stuff that was like a lot of work. And I was like, let's just send out some swipe copy. We use Event Raptor, which does a lot of the work for me, and throw together a summit. And so I put together these summits. They're a great time. The speakers meet each other. It's very live and interactive. They have a lot of fun. And we get 2, 3, 4, and by we, I mean I, get 200, 300, 400 opt-ins. And, I used to be like, that's not that great. It's kind of small, because some of these other summits are getting 10,000 opt-ins. And then I realized that was the marketing of the people who run summits, do done-for-you summits, that they could get you 10,000 opt-ins. I talked to people who actually hired these guys for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Like, yeah, I ran one, I made $2,000 and I got 590 opt-ins. And I'm like, well, the ones I just pull out of my pocket and fling onto the internet get 300 opt-ins, and it takes me a few hours to do it. And what I've discovered is that there's so much I can do and get similar results. Not say, and the people at the top level are getting 10,000 people signing up. I'm not at that level. But I don't have to be, because if I can get a few people to sign up for something here, or I can get a couple individual coaching clients, I don't need to be at the level of these 7-figure businesses. And in fact, you meet a lot of people running these 7-figure businesses, and they're not really happy running them, or they've lost integrity because their system is so automated and so optimized to be the machine and make the money and get the leads and that I'll meet them and they're a great person, and then I'll promote their event and someone will go to it and be like, that was garbage. That was a waste of my time. It was a sales pitch into a program that's a sales pitch into a. So I would rather be authentic. Honestly, I'd rather be authentic, working with people, driving Uber on weekends to cover the rest of the bills, than have a 7-figure business where I am so disconnected from people that there are people buying my program, putting the work in, and getting no results because it's just a machine to make me money.
I think you make so many good points. And I think a lot of it is so relatable to those entrepreneurs in that idea, I want to start a business, to hitting that 6 figures. We spend the bulk of our business in that space. And most people are afraid to say, yeah, I work another job, or yeah, I have to have another way of making money, because everyone's so worried about how they appear online. Well, I've got to be showing that I'm making money so that I can seem legit, so that all these things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
When you end up doing that, you look fake.
Yeah.
And like before we hopped into the podcast piece of this, I had mentioned to you, for me, this year was my most profitable year yet in my 8 years of business.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a pivot, a small pivot. I'm back at zero, climbing the ladder again.
Yep.
Because we have to, as entrepreneurs, we have to stay true to ourselves and our growth and who we're becoming and who we are meant to serve, and not feel like we have to be like the 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs when they spent years doing other jobs, running other businesses, doing other things, building the business to where it is, bringing on a team, doing all of these things that you were saying. You step out of those things and you make it simple. And I think people are afraid to make it simple, because then they're afraid they're going to look like they're not at a certain caliber of business. And honestly, the things that I've done the most simply are the things that have attracted the most clients in my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we take out all of that overthinking and worry, over time, your systems and processes will be put in place, but you have to start somewhere, and you can't start with everything.
Yeah.
So I love that you talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and I want to touch on that with in terms of email in a moment. Before that, we're talking before we started about my first business story when I graduated college, and which I always describe it as it was wildly successful except for never making money, which I think is a fairly accurate way of describing it. But I couldn't find a job leaving. And by couldn't find a job, I mean like finding a job was work and I didn't want to do it, if I'm being completely honest. So a mix of being an arrogant 22-year-old and having ADHD, both combined to be like, finding a job is dumb. I can just start a business. So I started a game store. And anyone who knows the gaming industry knows there's no money in gaming. The money is in the collectible card game, in Magic and things like that, in that secondary market. And I didn't go into that.
My son and I play that.
And I didn't go into that space. I went into the other part. So, you know that part of gaming where all the money is made? Yeah, I wasn't there. I was there. And so, a business without money does not function well. And most of the stress and pressure and everything that went wrong was money related. But in 2002, the business started. In 2005, I got to the point where I needed to make a living, because the business was paying its bills, but not paying me. And I actually tried to shut it down, but I wanted to get myself off the hook because it was a community space. And I couldn't just be like, hey guys, yeah, I know you love this, it's really important, but I'm out. So I called a meeting, and the intention was the community would say, we totally understand, Michael, you got to do what you got to do. And I got together about 20 something, about 20 people in the store. And I said, here's the deal. The store makes enough money to pay its own bills, keep the lights on, but not to pay anybody, especially me. I got to go get a job, which means I need to work like 40 hours a week to pay my bills and my rent and everything. So the only way this can possibly work, is if you guys are willing to step up and work for free forever and do everything that needs to get done, from stocking the shelves to covering the cash register to sweeping the floor to running the events. I think I was like, I can still do the admin stuff and the ordering, but you have to do everything else, all the grunt work, clean the bathroom. You guys are going to have to do all of it. And I don't ever see this store being profitable enough to pay anybody. So you'll be volunteers forever. So, if you're willing to say yes to that, we can keep it open, but otherwise, we're going to shut the store. And the response was almost in one voice, cool, what's next? What do you need? This was not an answer I was ready for.
Oh my gosh.
And every person in the room was like, we're in, what do you need? And
wow.
I had no idea. And so it turned into a train wreck, because a whole bunch of gamers who had been watching me ham-fistedly fumble this store for 3 years suddenly had the chance to get their hands on the wheel. And I had no bylaw structure or anything. We formed an interim board of directors, which was supposed to run by consensus. I learned a lot from that. But the point was that this community built, which, they weren't going to give it up, and they were happy. They were totally happy to volunteer. And of course, they're each going to volunteer 10 hours a week. And most of them hung out there all week anyway. So being there, it was like, cleaning your house occasionally while you're in it. So everyone pitched in. It ended up becoming actual nonprofit in 2008, which survived to 2018. So I think it was pretty successful. But, at the time, I kind of thought of it as a failure because I never made money. And I thought making money was the measure of success. And I was embarrassed about not having it. If this had been 20 years later in the age of Uber, I would have just driven Uber 20 hours a week, paid my bills that way, and the store would have lasted forever. Would have just been a hobby project. Of course, I never would have gotten married and had a child in that circumstance because I couldn't have afforded one. But but that's the thing is we now live in a time where entrepreneurs do have all these ways to make money. But as time went on and I worked a bunch of meaningless jobs and sales jobs and whatever, I was kind of always looking back over my shoulder at this time when I had an amazing community and I was doing something that was my all-consuming purpose. And now I'm just kind of like, I guess I'm paying my bills or something. So when the pandemic hit and the magazine that I was a publisher for, that was kind of cool, but it wasn't my passion. All my sales were coming from in-person networking, and that wasn't happening in March 2020. I worked diligently for 3-4 months to try to save it, but in the process of trying to find strategies to keep going, I ended up discovering the coaching world and how to sell coaching, and I stumbled backwards and sideways into it. I thought I was better than I was. In 2020, a gazillion people flooded into the coaching space who had no idea what they were doing and were selling products that they could not deliver on, and I was one of them. I'm not proud to say. Fortunately, I didn't sell really high ticket products. I can coach anybody. Okay, I could coach a few people. I did later get more training and develop those skills and found out what I didn't know. But through the networking that I'd done in person, I took those same networking skills to the internet. And where I am geographically, there's no money. So I can connect everyone in town. There's still no money. If I get 1% of every deal I put together, there's 1% of nothing is nothing. But then I moved to a bigger playing field, and I met people who one introduction could be worth $10, $50, $100,000. And they're like, oh, I'll pay you to make introductions for me. I'll give you a percentage. I'll do this. And I started to see the shape of a business. But more importantly, I got into this entrepreneurial space, which is about abundance mindset and about there are no competitors and collaboration and joint ventures and working together in different ways. And there are still some sharks swimming in the water, but the sharks really stand out because most of them aren't. And I got to this place where now it's jarring when I go into the local world and do something in like town politics or whatever. And I'm not hanging out with abundance-minded, collaborative, focused people. And I'm like, wait, did you not? I thought we all did this. Oh no, I moved to a better world. But so all day I spend my time with people who are saying, how can I help you? How can we work together? How can we help each other? And it's such a great place to be. And it's easy to forget the success you have because you're always looking ahead, especially when, your wife tells you, oh no, I have this much credit card bills, not that much credit card bills. And you're like, wish I could pay those off. Or, oh, we need money to fix this leak in the window. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how we're going to do that. And you feel like you're failing at that point. But then I think about all I do have. I spend my time surrounded by amazing people. I have a house. I have reliable cars. I always have food on the table. I have an amazing array of contacts. I have connections all over the world. And so the fact that I need to go out many weekends and drive Uber, which I think is super fun, by the way. It's like a video game app on your phone that you play with your car. I get to meet all kinds of people and learn all kinds of stuff and go all kinds of places. So it's not like real work. But for a while, I was embarrassed by that. And, and I actually had people tell me, like, don't let them know you're driving Uber on the side. No one's going to hire a broke business coach. And then I got some really good advice from someone once who said, if you're a profitability coach, you better not be driving Uber on the side. But you're a networking coach. You teach people to make connections. I don't teach people to make money making connections. My clients already know how to make money out of connections. They just don't know how to make those connections. And when I'm teaching the workshop about doing, planning my quarter, I'm not teaching you how to plan a profitable quarter. I'm teaching you how to plan a quarter. You know how to make a profit if you could double the amount of things you could do in a quarter. I can teach you this system, which will double the amount of things you can do in a quarter, which you can then plug into what you already have. But I think people often use profitability and their bank account as a score or a litmus test, because I don't know what else to measure against. But if you actually look at what someone's selling, compare what they're selling to what they're doing. So, I wouldn't hire a fat fitness coach. I wouldn't go to not sure if I'd want to go to a bald barber or a skinny chef. But so, if someone's an organization coach and their house is a mess, then I don't know about that. But if they're a networking coach or a fitness coach, it's a great example. A broke fitness coach, right? If someone's a fitness coach and they're going to get you all in shape and healthy and stuff, and they're in good shape and they can bench press a cow and they can run a marathon, but their car's falling apart and they're living in a shoebox, okay, you're not hiring them for your financial advisor. But if you hire a financial advisor and their car is falling apart and they're living in a shoebox, that's probably a bad sign. It's like when you get a cold approach through LinkedIn from someone who wants to sell you Facebook ads. And I'm like, if your Facebook ads work so well, why do you have to cold pitch me on LinkedIn? Or, a phone call from someone who builds high converting websites. Like, well, if you make such high converting websites, why are we talking on the phone? So it's about that integrity, but to realize that the money someone makes is a measure of their ability to serve, if what they're selling is the ability to make money.
And their ability to serve for profit. Because I know you understand this, and I've experienced this as well, is just because we're really good at what we do doesn't mean we always charge for it, or doesn't mean we, for a very long time, were able to figure out how to put a dollar to it, because there were things that we were still working through and figuring out. And I don't know if you were ever told this, but I was told this: go in and coach 50 people for free first. Do you know how hard it is to coach 50 people for free, to validate that you're good at what you do, and then try to turn around and charge people for it? They're like, but you've been doing this for free. Why are you going to charge for it now? Then they feel like this is this big bait and switch thing, and all this craziness happens. And why are you charging for that? And, oh, you know me, you should give me a discount. And, all of these things that come into play that we all face going through entrepreneurship. And it's something that then you need to work with a money mindset coach to figure that out. Well, so that you can break through some of those barriers to get to the place that you see the value in knowing that you can ask for money. The other piece of it too is, how is your marketing? Are you visible? Are you showing up? Does anybody even know what you do? You might be amazing at what you do. Yet if you're not actually, my phone's going off, I have no idea where it is. So I know we keep hearing it, but
no, just, I
turn it off.
I've
lost it.
Well, and that's the only issue with the marketing too, is that I'm out. People know me and don't know what I do, or they know what I do but don't know what I sell, and they don't know how to buy it. And this is part of why I did this, is that try to like, what is my offer? People say, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I connect people. But that's my connection services. Like, this sliver of the market can afford and have value out of those. I started $1,000 a month for that. So your typical aspiring entrepreneur is not hiring me for that. But that's why I also have workshops. That's why I have a program where I'm running summits. This is why I have a program where I do podcast production, or I have a team that does podcast production, and I'm teaching all these things I know and creating courses, and so trying to figure out like where is the market. But to your other point, so fortunately, no one ever told me to coach 50 people for free. In fact, So there's two ways you can go wrong. One is you're good at it, you've been trained, so now do a bunch of people for free, get testimonials. The other is, you know plenty, just start charging. That's the side I got brought in on, and I was taught a very good, an amazing sales strategy. So good that, not having any credentials, I got 10 clients in 10 weeks without saying a word of a lie, because I do not lie. That is like my thing. I don't do it ever for any reason. I mean, if there's a gun to someone's head, maybe I'd be willing to, but I probably couldn't get away with it because I have no practice. So there's no lying in the process. The process, it basically is asking a lot of questions, and the prospect will make some assumptions that they will not ask about. They'll just make those assumptions, and you move forward in a frictionless way, and then they hire you. So I got 10 clients to hire me in 10 weeks, and 8 out of 10 of them stayed for 1 month, went through the sessions, and then said, "No, I'm done." None of them asked for their money back. But almost all of them ended up dropping off because I didn't actually have the resources to serve them, which created its own confidence challenges for me. And which is why I've never been able to use that strategy since. I can teach other people the strategy and they can use it great. But when I try to use it, there's a block because my brain is still telling me, but you can't deliver. I'm like, well, it's 2023. I can deliver now. But it's hard to get back to that. But for me, it's like making connections is so easy. And there was a time when I'd meet with someone like, oh, you should be this person. And I'd go to a random meeting with someone. They'd seem pretty cool. I'd make 8 or 9 introductions for them, which means I'm then spending 30 or 40 minutes after the call sending all the introductions. Mm-hmm. And if they're not consummate networkers, 9 overwhelms them. They don't have time. They don't follow up with half of them. They don't know what to do when they get on the calls. They don't know what to do with them. So I'm not doing anyone any favors, but it's so easy. I had to put a rule on myself that I don't give more than 3 introductions when I'm meeting someone. So if it's that easy, how could I charge for it? It's just natural. It's my natural gift. And then I learned from someone that the thing that's easiest for you is the thing you have to charge for.
Yes.
Because if you can't charge for that, where are you going to make your money? That's your gift. And most importantly, it's not other people's gifts. So if my gift is making connections and I can't get paid to do it, then I go out and drive Uber. Right. And now I'm not making connections because I'm Ubering. So if your gift is helping people get organized or fixing their money mindset blocks or graphic design or whatever it is, and you can't get paid for it, you're getting paid doing something else, which means your gift is on a shelf because you're not charging the people who are actually getting the value. And then the universe is like, I gave you a freaking gift. Why aren't you using it?
And I think there's a big part of that story that I think many people deal with, and that's confidence, a lack of confidence, because it comes so easy to us. We think that we don't have enough value to offer to somebody else. And so we really struggle, not only in our business that we're working to grow and build, but it impacts our personal life. It impacts our relationships. It impacts our relationship with ourselves, with our spouse, with our kids, with life in general, because it's who we are. And if we feel bad because I was ready and I was going to build this business and it was supposed to go this certain way, and then it didn't, it tanks your confidence. It tanks your belief in your ability to serve others well. And a lot of times it could be, and this has been an experience for many of my clients, is the thing they thought it was, it's not even remotely close. But because so many people stay on that surface level and they never dig into the self-discovery piece of things, they just focus on the personal development. They focus on, okay, here I am and I'm going to grow too. And they forget about the foundation and they forget about what has happened, and they don't connect like, oh, because of this, now I feel this way. So like what you just said, I can teach people to do the strategy, but because I have a block here, I know I can't do that till I remove that block.
Yeah.
most people don't know their blocks. They don't know their blind spots. So to know that that's a piece of you, that in your growth, you're able to identify those blocks and tweak and adjust and do your big quarterly planning like that, so that you can step out of that block and know, okay, well, that's not something I can do. It's not, I can't do it because of this. And this isn't someplace I'm going to sit and spend my time fixing right now. So I have to go this way. So I'm going to do these things and adjust this way and grow this way. And in the meantime, I'm going to be doing Uber so that I can be bringing in revenue while I'm growing this side of things. Yep. I think so many people can relate to that, because I think it's a regular story that happens for so many people who are in this entrepreneurial space, and they think they're just going to jump in and in 3 to 6 months they're going to have this thriving business. And for some people it may happen that way, but it's such a rarity.
Yeah. Well, and it is where you mentioned the quarterly planning, because you said it as if it's like a thing that I always do. And there's a phrase we're going to use for the first time now. I'm going to call it tactical amnesia. Because I've never done this before. This is the first time.
Right.
The concepts that underlie it, I've learned over the last 2 years and possibly longer as I kind of dive into it. And so it all makes sense. And the idea of I know what I'm doing every day clearly is going to generate value. And I'm going to work my way down a bunch of those checklists and have completed various things. And whether they win or lose, at least I've done them and now I've learned and can evolve the plan. So pretty sure it's going to work. But I could also look at it and be like, this planning system, which I'm now going to teach people, is idea number 193, of which 7 have been profitable and successful. So who am I to think that this one's going to work when all the rest failed? Instead, and I think you need this to be an entrepreneur, and if you do not have this particular piece of brain damage, then you're going to be in trouble as an entrepreneur. You forget all the things that happened before, and you say everything that happened before is building to this. And now this one, I've got more knowledge and more experience and more tools than I've ever had before. So if anyone's going to make it, it's got to be this one. And you get super excited about it until it doesn't work. Or if it doesn't work, at which point you say, oh man, it didn't work. Ooh, what's next? And you go on to the next thing before you have time to wallow in what what gets hard. My wife gave me, speaking of wallowing, my wife gave me a candle for Christmas, and it has a label on it that says something like always remember you're awesome or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. And she said, yeah, it's for when you have those moments of imposter syndrome. I'm like, imposter syndrome? And she said, Michael, you get imposter syndrome every 4 to 6 weeks. It's like your period. And I'm like,
oh, Amy, no. That's awesome.
And it was literally like 4 days later that I had another dip. And she's like, find your where's your candle? It's under the tree. Go find it. Look at your candle. That's why I got it for you. And because that's, it happens cyclically that I'll get to the point of like, I don't know. The mistake I made was I took Christmas to New Year's off at a time when I was aware of all the challenges and taking no action for multiple days, which is, you can't take a break when things went wrong. You can take a break after things go well, because then you're like, yeah, that was good. I'm going to take a victory lap. I'm going to play some video games. Great. But if you get a bunch of bad, you're like, okay, so I'm in debt and I got this medical bill and I found this client dropped. Well, I guess I'm going to go on vacation. Cancel the vacation, stay home and work, because you're just going to go into a hole. One of the things I learned actually doing this, I attended I guess I call it a workshop. It wasn't really a workshop, but a thing as part of joint venture JVIC, where he's teaching about, it's January, so we're talking about goals and vision and whatnot. And he was asking all these questions like, do you know your purpose and your why and your all this? And I'm like, yeah, I really don't have good answers to all that. Like, what is your ideal day? What is all these visioning exercises? I don't have them right now. But I don't care, because I have a plan that moves in a forward direction. Now, if I keep doing this with no vision for 5 consecutive quarters, I'm going to be in trouble, because then I'll set up a system and a plan and I'll be chugging along like a juggernaut in a random direction. But my vision right now is get financially stable, get some systems that are functioning, get some clarity on what is working and what's not and directions to pursue. Then once I have that, I can be like, okay, now that I've got the tools in place and now that the car is built and running, where do I want to drive it to? If I've got a kit that I can build into a car, that may be too early to think, what city do I want to go to? Now, if I'm always like, I've always wanted to go to Topeka and I'm going to build a car to get to Topeka. I don't know why you want to go to Topeka. But I want to build a car to get to Topeka and it's all part of a larger vision. That's one thing. But if it's, I want to build this car kit, I think that'd be really cool. And a preliminary goal can be the goal in itself. So I'm excited about all the things in this board for their own sake. And for, I'm excited about running the summits. I'm excited about creating some courses. So I have a library of my own courses, which credit to my wife. She said, all this stuff, is there anywhere someone could buy it? And I'm like, no, actually. She's like, well, you think maybe it should be? You think you could explain some of it and like sell it? I could probably do that. And yeah, you never know if this interview I have ADHD. I hide it so well, right?
Not a clue.
Yeah.
No way.
But yes, so everything on here for itself is valuable. So if I get to the end of the quarter and I've succeeded in everything on there, then I'm gonna be like, yeah, I won, because the real my great vision is helping my wife get out of her job, creating enough income that she doesn't have to work anymore. So on a quarterly basis, I don't need to think about, do I need 100,000 or 1 million or 10 million or like that doesn't inform where I need to be on March 31st. Because where I need to be on March 31st is based on where I am on January 1st. If I'm making a 5-year plan, if I'm making major strategic decisions, which I'm not, because I'm already pointed in a direction. So where I am now, if someone's is at a blue sky point in their business where they could do anything, then yes, you do need vision. You got to know which direction you're going. I'm going the direction of all this stuff is building communities, running summits, teaching stuff, and through that making money. I'm pretty happy with any of those directions. If any of these catch fire and that's what I'm sucked into, if I'm running summits full time, that's cool. If I'm teaching courses full time, that's neat. If I'm running communities full time, I can do that. So I'm comfortable, but I don't have a grand vision, and I'm comfortable with not having it, because the idea that I wake up every morning and know what my job is. When I worked for the magazine company, they said if you wake up and don't have appointments on your calendar, you're waking up unemployed. And then you're like trying to get your job again by calling for prospects. And I think most entrepreneurs wake up unemployed every morning. They don't know what their job is. And they wake up like, hey, what is my job? What am I doing? What do I have to do? What are my actions?
Yes.
And
yes. I just ran a workshop in December that was Plan Your Year workshop. And it was a process that I walked people through, because they needed, one of the things that I think is so important is people do need to have an understanding of their core values, because those help you make decisions. If things don't fall in line with your core of who you are and the way you're running your business, then it makes it much more difficult to make the decisions as to what do I do, who do I bring in, all of that. You naturally function that way. Most people don't. So when you're saying, I'm not going to worry about the vision, I'm not going to worry about those things, I want listeners to understand that that is because of who you are and how you function, as where some people need to have that guiding focus. They need to know that foundation needs to be solid for anybody to build anything sustainable.
Yeah. Well,
and I love that you are staying true to who you are and how you function. And you're teaching people who are like you, who function that way. Because if people come to me and I'm going to teach them how to plan their year and go through this stuff, I do it very differently than how you do it. However, the end result is knowing what you're doing every day when you walk into your office. That result is that solution is the same. And so I want people to think very, very intentionally about, how do I function? Because if I'm investing in a coach and I'm investing in a workshop in something and it doesn't work for me, is it really the person you paid? Is it really their issue? No, it's because what they're teaching, the way they're teaching it, or any of that, it doesn't resonate with you. You don't learn that way. You can't function. Maybe it's not one of your strengths.
Well, and
so
also
people need to recognize that, take everything with a grain of salt. And when you learn something from someone, take it. And I had someone tell me this morning, Dina, I took your workshop in December. It was amazing. And it got me realizing that there were some additional things I needed to do. And a couple things that what you taught me, I needed to tweak because of how I function. And it was amazing for me. It wasn't that the workshop was bad for her. She got so much out of it. And she knew herself well enough to know that I take everything with a grain of salt that I learn and I tweak and adjust as it works for me. And so anyone that comes in and says, oh, I resonate with Michael, he's my next step. He's the guy I'm going to learn from. He's the guy I'm going to work with. Go into it knowing, one, there's a reason you guys align, right? Two, you are what will stand in your way. You are your biggest obstacle, because if you don't know and you can't recognize and you don't have the ability to be self-aware of what does and doesn't work for you when you learn something, and you're not willing to be like, okay, this part works and this part doesn't, so that I'm going to throw out the whole thing, instead of being like, okay, this works, this doesn't. Michael, help me figure this out, or help me adjust, right? I think that piece is the reason people are successful in learning something from someone, is because they are willing to be self-aware and understand how what they're being taught or coached in or led through resonates or doesn't work for them. And they know how to or not to apply it in their world. Because not everybody's business is the same.
Yeah, and it's a good point that you brought that up about, it's not like I don't need vision, I'm fine. I've been identifying my vision and core principles for 20 years because I've had to. I've never been a regular employee. And I think a lot of people are coming into coaching, consuming coaching, and a lot of people becoming coaches too, but especially a lot of people consuming coaching, becoming entrepreneurs. They've been an employee for 10, 20, 30 years. So they never had to think about what were their core values. They never had to think about what was their vision, was their ideal life. It never occurred to them they had control. So they just went to work. They did what they were told. They got their paycheck. They did what Susie Orman told them, or Dave Ramsey, or whoever. They continued to be broke because even the popular financial advisors still don't teach good advice. And so they did what they were told and never had to analyze this. And then they get into entrepreneurship and get pulled onto the wrong paths because they continue to do what they're told, but the people who are telling them what to do aren't the right people. Whereas for me,
the people are telling them what to do because it's what worked for them, because of their personality type, the way they function, what they're good at, what they're not good at. It also is impacted by their past and what does and doesn't trigger them, and all of these factors that come into play. And so they're teaching you what worked for them. And they don't. I've only had one coach say this to me. Maybe two. Maybe it was two. I guess both of them said it in their own way, was take what I'm teaching you and walking you through with a grain of salt, and know that if something doesn't resonate with you, set it aside. If something does resonate with you, take that on. And I think a lot of times we are waiting for someone to give us permission because we don't even know that something is an option.
Yeah, well, especially if you're used to working for a boss, or you go from having parents to having teachers to having bosses. You've always had someone who is the monarch over you. And so for me, it's a matter of I don't need to think about what are my values and what is my, what are my guidelines. And I thought about this. Someone was talking about a summit model where they charge the speakers $300 each, and there's 30 speakers in the summit. And you do the math on that, you made $9,000 before you run your summit. And I could totally run. I run summits all the time, and my plan is to scale that up and start running summits for other people. And that's kind of industry standard to charge $200-$300 for a summit, unless they get at least 50 opt-ins, which almost nobody does. And so you get to keep their money. And then it doesn't matter if anyone shows up, and it doesn't matter what value they got, because you already got your money. And I thought I could absolutely run that. I know how I'd put it together. I've got the systems, I've got the technology, and I can't do it. And I'm like, I could really use $9,000. That would be super cool.
Yeah.
And not one of those 30 speakers would say you cheated me. And not one of them would feel like they were taken advantage of because they got the stage they were promised. And there'd be people in the room and everyone would be happy, except I would know I hadn't delivered value. And there wasn't even a moment of like, well, let me compare. Like, it was just like, no, because I know what my values are. Now, does that mean I drive more Uber for longer? Which also gets to the point of, does the fact that someone have a side job reflect negatively on them? Or does it show they're not willing to do the things that make money? Because the more I get into the industry, the more I realize there's a bunch of things you can do that make money and make it fast and make it reliably, but it's taking people's money and providing disproportionately little value. It's not stealing from them because there is some who are like they're selling empty boxes. They're selling things there, but usually they really are selling something, but it's maybe a program that if you're honest is good for 1 out of 20 people and they're selling it to all 20 of them. And then the person buys it. And how many $500 courses, $1,000 courses have you taken and then not actually done or not gone through the process or whatever? And you wouldn't go to that coach and be like, you ripped me off. But at the same time, there's a lot of money to be made on that principle of people will buy the dream and then not do the work. And, a lot of money could be made that way. And if I wanted to put my energy into pursuing that course, I could make more money faster. But I'd rather drive Uber longer than ever create a program and think, am I delivering? Because what that does to the person who delivers the program is they start justifying and blaming their clients. And I never want to be in a place where, because I've had sales managers do this, and I've seen coaches do it, where it's like, well, the program is great, but people have to be committed to a certain level, and they have to have a certain level of moral fortitude to succeed, and we're giving them all the tools. It's up to them if they're going to do it. But like, okay, I guess, but I'd rather just not do it. And in some degree, like with my connection concierge program, I don't take responsibility for the profitability of the connections I make. I connect you to the people that you tell me would be profitable to meet. And then it's up to you to make value out of those connections because that's what you hired me to do.
And I will say it's the same with coaching or running a program. I'm telling you, here's what I offer.
Yep.
And I know it has value. And you have to be responsible in the sense of doing your due diligence, read the frequently asked questions, email and ask questions if you need to, but don't get it because you're in FOMO, right? Your fear of missing out. You're in this mode of, oh my gosh, it's only going to be here for 5 more days. So you're not only going to be here for 5 more days, and it may not be the right thing for you, but you're so worried because someone else said it was the best thing that ever happened to them. And you're looking at testimonies of, not that testimonies are bad, because I have them as well from my clients. Yet I think we misconstrue the fact that those people who were giving these testimonies were committed. They did choose to show up. They chose to purchase that program and they chose to do the work and get the results. And I think people put too much responsibility on the person leading, and it makes them feel like they have an out. That if I don't like it, or I'm not willing to put in the work to make it happen, it's their fault for lying to me. And now I feel gypped out of it, Yeah. And I think that a lot of that comes from, like you said, there's a lot of people coming into this space as an entrepreneur because there was a huge shift when everyone was losing their jobs with COVID, with the pandemic. And they're like, well, now what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to sell my expertise online. Nothing wrong with that. However, I feel like too many people were coming and saying they're a coach when they're actually a teacher. They aren't coaching you in any fashion. They are teaching you in a program. They aren't walking you through anything. They're not coaching you, because coaches ask questions and help you pull out of yourself what is already inside of you. A coach pulls that out of you. And you have all these people doing, oh, I'm doing a 6-week coaching program and it's all pre-recorded and it's all like this, and you never get to get coached.
That's not coaching. Yep.
And so I think a lot of it coming in and, already being an entrepreneur in this space as a coach, consultant, and a mentor, that I found I have to make sure I'm careful of the verbiage that I use, because I will hold people accountable. If you're going to buy something from me, you have to make sure that you have done your due diligence, that this is really where you need to be and it is your next step. If you come in and you buy something because you've seen me for 5 seconds and you're like, ooh, I really want that, and you buy it and you don't put in the time and effort, whose fault is that really?
Well, I think part of the challenge too is that a lot of the marketing is so hyperbolic, because the way marketing is, you focus on what the solution is, and who wants a solution of you'll wake up every morning knowing what you have to do that day? No, that's not the solution people want. People want more profits, and they want better health, and they want better relationships. So when I'm selling the workshop, if I changed my marketing for the goal setting workshop, or the plan 3 months in 2 hours workshop, to something that was more, at higher level, I would probably get more people. But I'm not comfortable doing that, because what I am selling is you will have clarity of what you're doing for the next 3 months. You'll get more things done.
And you would be surprised at how many people that will actually resonate with.
Right. Like me.
Because you and I are not selling to high ticket clients where we're charging $5,000 for a 6-week program, right? Yeah. If you come into our high ticket stuff, it's a $1,000 to $1,500 a month to work with us one-on-one in the way that you need us for, right? Like those are our high tickets, because we work with clients who are in that early stage of business, and they're still trying to make it, and they're still trying to figure it out. And I think part of the problem with the marketing these days, and I know you've ran into this too, like you just mentioned, they're selling a solution. Actually, they're selling a result. They're selling a result that is very specific. And so many people are focused on selling the fact that they can make you money or increase your revenue. And they keep so much away. Like they don't tell you, yeah, you're going to invest $20,000 into this program for 6 months. And once you do that, you're going to have to invest in all the ads. You're going to have to invest in all of these things, because we're going to teach you how to run it like we do with a team, but you don't have a team. Yeah. And they don't tell you that up front.
Well, and that's something that slowed down my business development walks, try to emulate the best and do what they're doing. And I'm like, hey, so I want to make a $5,000 program. What the heck is in a $5,000 program? Because you look at all the marketing, and unless you go to their 90-minute workshop or their 3-day event, you can't find out what they're selling. You don't know what it costs. You don't know what's in it. And so you have to invest all this time to find out. So I'm like, what the heck is in these high ticket programs? And they're like, well, you create transformation and blah, blah. I'm like, right. Is it a weekly coaching call? Is it a telepathic link? Is it a pill? Like, what's in the box? It's just a box. And then I realized half these boxes are empty. Or they don't do that. They don't actually deliver more money. They deliver clarity in your schedule, or they deliver a Facebook marketing strategy, or they deliver a course building strategy, or something like that. But so many of these things, and they're swinging back, because I think people have stopped buying the dream, because once you've been sold the dream once and you realize it's an empty box, you don't buy it again. And that's what's completely. So in the joint venture space, a lot of the big players are down 30 to 70% in the effectiveness of their campaigns, because so many people have gotten burned that even the legit players who really do offer value still can't sell, because the charlatans copied the strategies of the legit players, and now they all sound the same. So, and of course, the big ones are like cruise liners. They can't, I can change my strategy this week to next week to next week. These big players, they've got their launch strategy for the next 18 months. So if they discover there's a problem with their marketing, it's a huge undertaking to change their copy or change their strategy for their December launch, because they build, run, tweak, run, tweak, run, tweak. If they need to make a major change, that's a huge risk in these larger things. But yeah, it's so much as selling the dream. I'm more comfortable. And again, this comes to the place where I'd rather do it my way and take longer than do it someone else's way and maybe hit. Because the worst thing would be to do it someone else's way and miss. Do it in a way that's out of integrity and still not make money, because then I'm unhappy and broke. I'd rather be happy and broke. So I'm much more comfortable because doing it in a way that I can sell my mother. If I'm doing this workshop and I'm explaining the workshop as I'm going to teach you how to plan out your entire quarter in the course of 2 hours, and I'm charging $97 for that, I have now told you the whole truth. There's nothing hidden. Like, that's the deliverable. By the end of 2 hours, you'll have a quarter planned out. It costs $97. If I say I'm going to help you be more productive and get more success and have less stress in your life, and you come and you're like, okay, cool, I know what I'm doing for a quarter, but that's not where my stress is coming from. So you didn't deliver the thing you sold me. You delivered me a different thing. I think of my audience as my friends. So I think probably the thing that scares me more than anything, if someone unsubscribes my list because they're getting too much of it, whatever, they're not my person. But if someone comes to my program, at the end of it says, this wasn't what I expected, that's probably the worst thing someone could say to me is, this wasn't what I thought it would be, in a bad way. Now, to say this wasn't what I thought it would be so much better, that's totally cool. But to say this wasn't what I thought this was going to be something different, then I would immediately go into damage control. Like, let's get on a call. Let's do some personal coaching. Let me deliver the thing you wanted to get. I would much rather be, and maybe I have said a few times recently, I'm either a great visionary or impossibly naive, and I don't know which one yet. But I just don't want to be out of integrity even a little bit. And so, bending the truth by talking about some lofty deliverable isn't comfortable to me. And maybe when I'm at a larger scale and I actually have, and there's an arm's length distance where I've got a copywriter who's working with the marketing team, and I'm like, yeah, this copy's pretty much accurate, and it's not me typing words out and hitting send to my 1,200 closest friends, maybe I'd be more comfortable taking a little bit more artistic marketing license. But while it's me talking to people, and especially if it's me talking to a camera and doing a live video or whatever, I want to keep it to the obvious value. I'm going to make these connections, or I'm going to teach you to speak like me, or I'm going to teach you how I built this. People see this and say, I want one. I want a wall of plans. I'm like, $97, I'll give you a wall of plans.
And I think one of the things that I like is that, like you've mentioned, sticking to your integrity. Just because it works for other people doesn't mean I want to do it that way. Mm-hmm. And holding to, even though it might take longer, I'm willing to do it this way in order for it to work for the long term, looking at longevity, mm-hmm. instead of trying to make a quick buck at the risk of just taking people's money for the sake of taking people's money. And then if they make it, they do. If they don't, they don't, and not caring. Mm-hmm. And so I think,
the flip side of that mindset, though, before anyone hears that and be like, oh no, you're right, I shouldn't be taking their money. Most entrepreneurs overestimate the value of money. So if I'm charging, and I say compare it to what other people spend money on. So an average person who goes to a bar regularly can drop $100 in a night, like nothing. Mm-hmm. I talk to people who, go to the casino and gamble $1,000. And these are not rich people. These are, middle-class working people who drop $1,000 at the casino and say, yeah, I only do that like once a month. So if you're a coach and you have a $500 program or a $100 program, and it does what it promises, but doesn't change their life, that's fine, because they're going to spend it at the bar or the casino or the strip club otherwise. I'll never forget when I was driving Uber one day and I gave a ride to a exotic dancer, and she was telling me about her business model, which was actually fascinating to learn about. First off, how similar the exotic dancer business model and the coaching business model are, but that's a whole different thing. I wrote a blog about it. But she was telling me that, guys will tip her $20, and that in the VIP room for 20 minutes is about $500. And I cannot imagine anything in that could happen in that room in 20 minutes where that $500 be worth more than what a good coach could do for someone. Now, while you're in there, you might think it was worth it, but the next day, you'd probably rather have spent that money on a coach. So if you're a coach, a speaker, a trainer, a teacher, using the right term, a mentor, whatever it is, and you're thinking like, wow, yeah, I know this program seems like it delivers value, but 500 is a lot of money because I'm a broke entrepreneur. Just remember, people drop $500 in 20 minutes in some clubs, and you deliver more value than that. So,
and I think part of that too is spending money versus investing in ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We will spend money for the sake of feeling better. Mm-hmm. I'm let me shop, right? I just bought a chair today, a $300 chair for $75. It's been sat in 5 times. I went and picked it up. It's something I've been wanting for my office for a very long time. And it just so happened, I got the inkling to just look on Facebook Marketplace the other day, and I found it. Actually, it was yesterday I found it. And I realized this is something I'm investing in because of what it does for me and the purpose it provides me. When I go online and I shop and I buy new pants and I buy a new top and I buy a new thing here and there, or I buy the 3rd ring light that I have or something like that, that's more me spending money because it makes me feel better. Yeah. And so I think it's important that when, as entrepreneurs, as we're getting into who do we work with, who resonates with me, what is my next step? What's the one next thing I need? Maybe it is checking out Michael and learning what he does and how he serves people and what the services are that he has available that can help you. And maybe it's being like, oh, he's a connector. I need connections. And Michael, amazing connector. I've made some of the most amazing connections in the time that I've known you. It's been incredible. And if that's where you feel you are led, go check them out. If you're like, I know I need something like that, but maybe he's just not the right person for me, then you reach out and go, who can you connect me with? Right? I want people to know that this story that you've talked about, the challenges of starting a business and it going under, the challenge of running a business with the ADHD and knowing that working a job is just not something you can do because of how you function. Not everybody's like that, but there are many people who have that same struggle. And then you come into a space of entrepreneurship and you're navigating the waters and staying true to who you are and who you serve. The thousands of people you've connected and that you've brought together in your network, one is freaking incredible. I actually met someone in your network, 2 people who live right down the road from me. One's in Longmont, one's in the next town over. One is best friends with someone I went to high school with.
Okay, I was about to mention the bizarre convergence that's Longmont, but you're part of the convergence of Longmont, which is apparently not that big a town that I know 3 people in.
Yeah, that's down the road a little ways, but yeah.
But it's like a town of 100,000 people, right? It's not a major
I couldn't tell you. I don't know populations.
but it's not, it's not New York City. It's not it's not even Denver. It's I know 3 people from Connecticut. I know 3 people I met independently of each other in the small town of Longmont, because there's these weird geographic convergences where I happen to. Calgary is also another place where I've met a ridiculous number of people. But anyway, your point was, yes, you met a bunch of people in the Longmont convergence.
I think what's really cool is we as entrepreneurs, we have to be intentional in learning about people's stories. So when we find someone online, we see all the hype, we see their Instagram, we see all the highlight reels. We have to be willing to take a step back and look at, who is this person? What is their story? We have to be willing to read about their story, to hear about their story, to listen to their podcast, to read their blog, to read their about me, to read their emails, because believe it or not, a lot of people share parts of their story in the emails. You get to learn a lot about someone in their emails and all of those kinds of things. And so just hearing your story from where you were to where you are now, and having watched some of this for the past few months, I think it's so important for people to, just a few takeaways from this is, one, stay true to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to conform to what everybody else is doing just because they say it.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we are all going to have moments of imposter syndrome. We're all going to have moments of lack of confidence. It's a natural part of being an entrepreneur. And every 7 and 8 figure entrepreneur that I've talked to, that's still a thing that they deal with, even making that kind of money. So I think we have to let go of this expectation that it's becoming a celebrity, that we're all going to be this big celebrity. Everybody's going to know us, because honestly, how many clients do you really need in order to set up your lifestyle in the way that you need to provide for your family, to run a business? And what is the goal? Like, what are you really working towards? You know what you're working for, and it's for right now. And then once I get the right now figured out, then it's for longevity, to bring your wife home. Many people start with, I want to retire my spouse, but they can't break it down into the details of how do I get there? Yep. And so have some grace with yourselves. Know that we all struggle. We all go through all of this. You're not alone in that. And so hopefully you found a lot of value in this talk today, and it gave you some sense of, I don't know, camaraderie, and knowing that there's others out there like you. We all struggle. We all go through our own things. And no matter where you are on your journey from, I have an idea, to I've been in business for 8 years and I'm pivoting, and so now I'm starting over, like me, or, just any of these things, that doesn't mean you're a failure. Yes, you may have failed at things. We've all failed at things. It's part of life. Mm-hmm. And keep going and figure it out as you go, and have some grace with yourself, because when we do that, it really allows us to have the opportunity to use our gifts to share with others.
Yeah, there's some VCs who won't invest if you haven't failed twice.
Okay, say that one more time and say it slower.
I said there's some venture capitalists who will not invest with a founder who hasn't failed once or twice, because they know you're going to fail the first time and they don't want to be the one bankrolling your education.
That's a very good point. And I think a lot of people still at this stage don't even know what a venture capitalist is, and don't even know that that's an option. And so if you don't know what that is, and you don't think it's an option, at some point, you will probably want one, depending on your goals. And that's the other thing, is not everybody's going to want a VC, right?
I don't want a VC.
No.
That doesn't fit what I'm doing.
Right.
There's a whole lot of compromise you do once you start bringing in partners. But
there is a lot of things that change when you start going down that road.
Yep. And actually, speaking of partners, I teased earlier that I was going to mention email and authenticity. And so I was never able to wrap my head around the way that the big players market with email. And I don't like it a lot. I'm on the email list of people I really like, and I can't stand their email list because they're dull and repetitive and salesy and pushy. And so I just kind of started sharing my story and doing things my way. And then I had more and more things I wanted to share. And so I upped my cadence. So I went for I was sending it once a week, and then 3 times a week, and then 5 times a week, and sometimes 7 times a week. And no particular strategy, mean, there's some strategy. Like I'm in a 12 days of Christmas right now, but
Yes.
mostly it's just kind of like something comes to mind. I'm like, oh, I should send this out. I should share this story, or this thing just happened to my cat yesterday. Let me tell the story about my cat. Here's a picture of my cat. And the result has been a 30% open rate, a very low unsubscribe rate. And I email almost as often as I post on social media. But my audience is like, yeah, we're here because we want to hear your stories. That's why we're here. So yeah, share the stories. And then sometimes people will be like, I'm unsubscribing, you send too many emails. Because if, receiving 7 emails a week from me is too much for you, then you probably shouldn't be on my list. But I'm sharing my story. It's not like I'm pitching and being like, come to my webinar 7 times a week. It's being authentic. And it was totally a matter of, I can't figure out how to do this, so I'm just going to kind of do what is fun, and I'll see what happens. I'm just going to goof around with my 600 friends who are now my 1,300 friends. And they stick around because either they leave right away and they're like, this guy, or they stick around because they're like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. He's kind of funny. I look a picture of his cat. Oh, look, there's a picture of him broken down the side of the road. He's doing some stuff. But so when you're thinking about like, how do I communicate with my audience? Just talk to them like they're people. Don't worry about the strategy and the algorithm. You can't figure out the algorithms anyway. You can't beat the market. You can't beat the house. And you can't beat the algorithms. So just share stuff that seems cool to you. The wrong people will show themselves the door. Every email's got an unsubscribe button on it by law. They'll show themselves the door, and the right people will stick around and be like, keep it coming.
Yeah.
And that's my marketing advice, is just be you, and don't worry about what works for a 7-figure company, because sometimes it's not working. A lot of times you're emulating a company that's failing, but they're really big and they're really loud while they're doing it.
And the other part of that is they have a team.
Yes.
That's like, they have so many people that are doing so many things behind the scenes, that you're trying to do that as a 1-person business, and there is no way to have the capacity to show up like that on a daily basis the way they do, with 5, 10, 20 people on their team that are doing all of these other things. I like to compare it to a brick and mortar business where you are the CEO and you do only what you can do. And then you have a department for all the other things, for finance and for admin and for marketing and for sales and all of those. But when you run a solo business, you are everything. And so you have to be very intentional where you put your time and effort, so you don't self-sabotage and destroy everything before you even get started.
Yep. Very true. Very true.
So, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story and just all of your wisdom and knowledge that you graced us with. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, can I share my super cool URL that I just got?
You can.
So I've always had guyknowsaguy.com for years, but recently I was like, I need something shorter and easier. And so I'm searching around looking for links. And I looked for superconnector.com. Not available, obviously. But it said, would you instead like megaconnector.com? And I said, yes, I would like megaconnector.com. That would be a lovely website. So megaconnector.com is forwards to my website, and everything's on there as of whenever I last updated my website. There's a bunch of stuff to find, links to my Facebook and social media and whatnot.
Yes.
I'll let megaconnector.com, because I can now say I'm the Mega Connector because I got the URL.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, because that's not the URL that I was going to mention. So I'm glad that you shared that. And any information and ways that you can connect with Michael are going to be in the description. So you can find him on his website. You'll have access to all of that information. So please, if there was any part of this podcast that resonated with you, that you felt you connected with Michael, reach out to him, get connected. He's incredible and amazing, has a fantastic network. And I don't think I've ever had a conversation with Michael or been in a meeting with Michael where he didn't say, oh, because of what you just said, I think you need to talk to, and he connects somebody. It's just a natural thing. So thank you again. This was fantastic. And if you guys like this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a review, rate it, share it out with others who will find value in it. that's the podcast.
Nice.
This was awesome. Thank you so very much. This was amazing. And I do love your board behind you.
Yeah, again, it's tactical laziness. After I finish, I'm like, well, I guess I should erase this and then cover it back up with the green screen, which you can actually see the green screen folded up over there. I guess I just fold the green screen, put the green screen back up because I don't know, I plan up behind me every time I go. And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I do want my quarterly plan behind me everywhere I go.
I think that's really cool. Like my plan, like if I were to show you, I have I have a piece of, I don't know, cardstock, maybe it's a big piece, and I covered it with like laminate stuff, and I have sticky notes with arrow sticky notes. Like it's my whole strategy for these things for marketing. And then I have these boards over here, and I have that board over there, and like I have all my boards everywhere because my plan and my strategy, I'm a pen to paper person, and I have to get it out and I have to see it, and then I have to tweak and adjust. And I think it's so funny because people tell me, you changed your background again. Oh, I just turned my desk around. I needed something different. I need to adjust. I do those kinds of things. And it's the same with my plan and my strategy, because I think there's so often, like you said, we tweak and adjust. And as we have a new idea, or we're like, oh, maybe it wasn't a good idea, I'm going to do it this way instead next time. Like we have to give ourselves room for fluidity. Yep. And I think if we write it down like what you have, or, whatever works for us, and we have a plan in place that's not set in stone, and we understand that change is inevitable, we can go into that and we can, let's move this sticky note around, or let's get rid of this thing completely and try this in here. And I think it gives us opportunities to grow.
That was the biggest surprise, was that I knew having a plan laid out. So I knew every day, like what during the break, on Thursday and Friday, I got up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 3 things. And I did 3 things. I'm like, I feel good about that. Friday, I did 3 things. I'm like, I felt pretty good too. I'm like, I could do 3 things every day.
Yeah.
If I made a list of all the action items, just broke them into 3 things a day. I could do 3 things a day, and that's 198 items over the course of 3 months. I bet if I did 198 things, that would move the ball down the field a bit. So that's how this started. But then I'm thinking, okay, well, but now it's rigid. Like now I'm planned out through March. So what if something comes up? But what I realized was, because it's on a spreadsheet, I can move it. So because it's there, I can make that choice and actually decide, okay, this is now moving, as opposed to I'm doing this now and that's going, I don't know, back off the to-do list somewhere. So I focused on the 100. It's actually, I have about 120 items scheduled. But so if I do those 120 things, if I do all those things, I've run 4 summits, I've created 5 courses, I've gotten 5 book boon articles out, I've got the Entrepreneur Mentor Community Facebook group going, I've got the Camera Confidence Club running. Like if I just do those things, I've gotten all those things done. And then I might do other things, but so I've got that baseline of like, all this will get done, plus maybe more things.
Right. And I think too, this isn't how you started your business, doing these 100 and some things and all these summits and all these programs and all these courses. And so I think it's important for people to hear that none of us started out that way, unless we're super crazy. But we build into that. And that's why I'm so passionate about systems and processes and putting things in place to streamline our business so we can grow. Because at some point that growth is going to happen. And if you're not ready, I've seen too many people crumble under the pressure. And they're like, things are growing so fast, I don't know what to do. And they start going into survival mode. And they start freaking out because they don't have the systems and processes set in place for their business to handle that kind of influx. And I think it's so important that in this foundational space, when we are figuring out our businesses, we're growing into whatever we're growing into to eventually hit that 6 figures. There are so many things that we need to have in place along the way. And if we try it and tweak it and try this and it doesn't work, and now we do this thing and this is what's working, then we build from the things that work and we put the systems and processes in place. So eventually we can streamline as many things as possible that still allow our business to be authentic.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny when people are like, wow, Michael, you're so organized. I'm like, who?
I don't heard anybody say that to you.
I mean, I've had people say that, but then I realize I'm systematized more than organized.
Yep.
Because I don't feel organized. But at the same time, if you say, hey, yeah, can we just get on a call tomorrow? I'm like, no, there's a system for that. You come onto my calendar through the system. Unless you're offering me money, you go through the system.
Right.
You know, so everything is systematized so it functions. The result is I can meet 20 people a week because it's systematized.
Yeah.
You know, I can get an email out 5 days a week, which, you know, while to me, it's like I need to dial myself back to send less emails. Most people are like, oh, I can't write 1 email a week, let alone 5. You know, I probably do 15 to 20 pieces on social media a week. I don't even count them. I just do them. But I can do all this because it's systematized, which looks like organization, and kind of is, because it's structure creates freedom. Because I have those things in place. And yeah, if I had to keep track of the 10 group without a weekly call, it wouldn't be one. Like I can't maintain friendships. I have very few friends who aren't connected in some other way, who are just friends. And those people I forget to talk to for 3-4 months at a time. Then I'm like, oh, I should talk to that person. How do you talk to me? Just call them? Book an appointment?
Do I need to set an appointment with them so I can chat with them?
Yeah, because my life is systematized.
Yeah.
So it's so uncomfortable to just pick up the phone and call somebody. I'm like, how do we just call them? Which also means sometimes an appointment, like my personal trainer, I need to schedule another appointment because we all just schedule it at the end of each appointment. And now I need to like book one, which means I need to message and see what's available and cut something out. And haven't done it because it's just such a hassle to manually do something. Because I live by the systems.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure. And once I still have more podcasts that I'm recording through the end of February. I had to push things out since I was sick for 2 weeks. And
I thought it was just a cold too, but it was COVID.
Oh no, I got tested. Me and my son my son was sick in bed for a week. And then I started getting sick. So we both went and got tested and they said it's a cold. No flu, no strep, no COVID. It is a bad cold.
Okay. Yeah, I took a test at home.
Great,
it was negative.
Thanks.
My wife took a test, it was negative. Took a second test, was positive. Then I took the second test and pushed it further up, and that one was up. So I did not stick it far enough in.
Oh no, we went into urgent care.
Oh, you went to the experts. Yes, the
professionals. I was like, no, I'm not sticking anything in my nose. I will hurt myself.
It's resilient.
How funny.
Blood, you're fine. But no, this was fun. Thank you for having me on the show. And
absolutely.
I will. All right. Yeah, let me know when it comes out, and I will put it on my appearances page and share it out to the world.
Sounds good. Well, take care, and I will see you again Wednesday.
See you then.
All right. Bye.